The New England Patriots just dropped this huge sign. Let's talk about it. My name is Aaron on the daily Patriots content. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and as well, hit the like button because you're all wonderful people. Sorry I missed you yesterday, Memorial Day. Not only was it Memorial Day, thank you for all the men and women who have served this beautiful country and as well given it all for this country and for the freedoms that we have. But as well, it was my wife and I's 13th wedding anniversary. So we went and celebrated on with that as well. So anyways, I know you don't want to hear about that. We are moving on to Patriots content. Now, one of the big storylines for the Patriots hasn't necessarily been the free agents that were picked up or the draft picks, but it's been a lot of undrafted free agents that have the potential to make this team. Now, one of those people, one of my favorite people, and we mentioned him a little bit yesterday or the other day, was Lan Larison. Lan Larison coming from UC Davis, a running back. And before we get into that, we also talked about CJ Dupree as well as Efton Chisholm III, the wide receiver, and then the tight end that got very nice guaranteed money from the Patriots to come. They were coveted by many teams, and they decided to come to the Patriots. And so those are players as well that have a good chance to make the team. But Lan Larison was a guy we talked about for just a brief moment. Again, he signed, I believe, a deal where he was guaranteed $175,000, a lot of money that either of us would take, any of us would take in a heartbeat. But Lan Larison was taking reps with the first unit the other day in OTAs, which is big. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, Aaron, listen, they just want to get their eyes on him. Yes, that's 100% true. And Ramondre Stevenson was gone. Yes, I will concede that. But it is also big the fact that he's getting those snaps over someone like Antonio Gibson. Now, I'm not saying don't think that I am trying to say that Antonio Gibson is not going to be on this team. I think that Antonio Gibson can add a lot to a Josh McDaniels offense. But again, remember, I think Lan Larison can as well. Now, it's pointed out that his bursts of speed and stuff are not necessarily comparable to an Antonio Gibson, but still his top end speed, his ability to make quick, agile cuts, his competitiveness, as well as his willingness to learn, are huge assets that can make him a hot commodity. And obviously he was, as a undrafted free agent by the Patriots, getting the money that he did. And not only that, we've talked about it before, but he can add to special teams as well. So again, he was one player that I think when we looked at CJ Dupree and we looked at Efton Chisholm, I would say Dupree is my lock. I think he is going to be making this team. Then I would say Efton Chisholm. It all depends on how some of these wide receivers kind of shake out. Again, what's going to happen to Kendrick Bourne? What's going to happen to Polk? Again, I don't necessarily think they're going to move on from Polk and Baker the snap of a finger. Again, they're all going to have their opportunities when it comes to training camp. But Lan Larison was a guy where I'm like, well, I'm not sure. We got to remember Travion Henderson was drafted out of Ohio State, a great pickup, a pickup that, as you remember in the draft room from Forge in Foxborough, where they could have traded that pick more than once and gotten a decent haul for it. But instead said, no, we want Henderson on our team. We think he is that valuable. And so they ended up taking him. So we can't forget that. But the question ultimately becomes for Lan Larison, is he a net positive to go on the 53-man roster? Regardless, he is on the practice squad. I think that is no doubt. No doubt he is a minimum on the practice squad. Terrell Jennings, a guy that came out of Florida A&M, my fault. I don't think, even though his mom watches this show or has watched this show before, I don't know if there's going to be any room for him in this running back room. I do think Lan Larison is surpassing him, but I'm not yet to say, like other people have said, that he is some going past Antonio Gibson. Again, I think Antonio Gibson and his attributes and what he adds to this team, similar to how he played in Washington when he was catching a lot out of the backfield. I think that Josh McDaniels can really bring that out of him and use him well. He's not on a big contract, so again, sure, I guess they could cut him. They could try to trade him, but I don't think that is the plan. And so I do think, again, coming back full circle, it's a huge sign to see someone like Land Larson taking these first reps with the starting unit. And it was cool, obviously, to see him getting hands off from Drake Maye. But I think the bigger sign is I truly think the Patriots see someone like this guy, for sure, again, making the practice squad, but having a great chance of making the 53-man roster. I think that's a huge sign, and I think it could be a potentially great sign. Definitely seeing other undrafted free agents that have a lot of potential. The value added. There's the words, Aaron. Come on now. The value added to this offense, especially from an offense that just was so lackluster last year, and then being able to, hey, we evaluated these guys, and again, based on the schematics of how Josh McDaniels runs his offense, that they are going to be worth it putting on this team. So again, comment below. What do you think, Land Larson? Are you high on him? Are you kind of middle of the road? But between him and Antonio Gibson, what are your thoughts? Again, I think Travion Henderson is going to take that number 2 spot. If not, eventually, their goal would be probably for him, obviously, to surpass Stevenson. Again, I don't want to put that on Stevenson. He still has a handful of years left on his contract, and I do think he can get the fumbles in check, but I do think Henderson could be a solid 1-2 punch, and the question becomes, okay, well then what happens to someone like an Antonio Gibson and a Land Larson? Again, Land Larson adds the value of special teams, but then the question mark would be, how are they going to use Antonio Gibson? So your thoughts, Land Larson, Antonio Gibson, what are you leaning towards? What are your thoughts? What are your visions for this team? Comment below. Next, cool little article about how the comparison between Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels. Apparently, there was a very heated debate on ESPN about this. The person that was on Drake Maye's side made a lot of very good arguments, and some of those arguments being, listen, we got to remember, Drake Maye had no weapons. If you look at all these rookie quarterbacks that came in last year, Drake Maye almost certainly had the worst offense around him, hands down. And he was still able to work his way to a Pro Bowl, even though, as some people said, listen, I'm just not going to go to a Pro Bowl, and it ended up falling in his lap. Regardless, that doesn't matter. He had a rough team. Jayden Daniels, you could easily argue, had much more weapons in front of him, as well as a competent offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury. Now, Drake Maye, I think I would tell you, and you're going to say, Aaron, you're biased. Yes, I'm biased, for sure biased. I'm going to admit my biases, all right? Drake Maye, just a few quick hitting things. First and foremost, younger than Jayden Daniels. So still, it will be able to play more, for sure, in my mind. Second, stronger arm. You're going to say, well, Aaron, look at Jayden Daniels, look at the year he had. Yes, but a lot of times the whole offense that they were playing was, if you watch that game against the Lions, it was textbook. The Lions would essentially I don't want to say load the box, but a lot of their defenders would be by the box, within the box, and then they literally would just throw screens and let their playmakers make plays. I'm not saying Jayden Daniels can't throw a deep ball, but what I'm saying is Drake Maye can throw a better deep ball. Again, I think as well, Drake Maye has a higher ceiling, just because he has just entered into the NFL. We got to remember Jayden Daniels was in college football for a long time. He was at Arizona State, then LSU. Where Drake Maye, I think he still has some to learn. So his ceiling, I would say, is higher than Jayden Daniels as well. He has the opportunity to prove it this year with weapons around him, with an offensive line. And then the other big thing too is a lot of people pointed out, well, Jayden Daniels is better in the pocket. And sure, I would concede that Jayden Daniels is better, but I don't think it's an exponential, he's exponentially better. I would say that Drake Maye, if you remember Jacoby Brissett from Drake Maye, Drake Maye had a very good pocket presence. And I was preaching that at the beginning of the year when Jacoby would just kind of freeze in the pocket, almost get caught flat-footed. It was just tough to watch a lot of times. And that's not his fault. Obviously, the offensive line was rough. But Drake Maye gets in there younger, more athletic, able to move around in the pocket. So I would argue you watch film of Jayden Daniels, and sure, Jayden Daniels is probably much more of a threat on the ground. But I would also argue Drake Maye is also a threat on the ground. And if you compare the two in the pocket, the Patriots obviously had the much worse offensive line, but Drake Maye was able to handle that with class. And again, this is all kind of arbitrary, subjective kind of criticisms when it comes to both of these players. But I think the big answer will be this year. How will Drake Maye perform with a top-tier offensive coordinator, with I would say probably average offensive line? I would give right now would be my grade. Last year I'd give the grade the worst offensive line, but I'm saying I'm bumping it up to about average. Wide receiver core has a lot of potential. The run game has a lot of potential. The tight ends, those are one of the try and true positions that are coming back from last year. So what will Drake Maye be able to do with that? And again, I think he has all the potential in the world, and I think he can to prove this argument that he is just as good, if not better, than Jayden Daniels. I think he can do that this year, and I think he will do that this year. Moving on as well, one last article. Patriots could cut ties with second-round pick just after one season. Sure, Jalen Polk. Again, my big thing with Polk, with Baker, with these guys is coming out of college, they had so much potential. Especially Jalen Polk coming out of college, out of Washington, with a lot of wide receiver talent, if you remember that draft class. Offensively, a lot of talent around the board. And you're thinking, man, he's in he played for Washington, a pass-happy team, and he's going to fit in just fine. And he didn't. And he struggled with drops and all these different things, and it was just rough to watch. But again, I think he obviously has a lot to prove. And you could blame the coaching staff a little bit from last year. Yes, we've talked about that. But to say that they're going to cut ties with him, I don't see that. I see them giving up on someone like a Kendrick Bourne before one of these younger guys. And again, we have to remember Elliott Wolf is there. A lot of times he's the de facto GM, whatever you want to call him. A lot of times every time you are tied to the players that you drafted. So he drafted those guys. Again, he's kind of in a seat where it's like, hey, I got to do anything I can to make this team, to help make this team better. And if that's the consensus that we cut him, sure, that's what we're going to do. But I think at the same time, he wants him to succeed, to say, see, remember when I said, we talked about drafting this guy? There was a reason we drafted him, and it was worth it. And I think the same with Javon Baker. But we will see moving forward. Training camp will answer so many questions. So anyways, longer episode today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Comment below anything you want to talk about. As well, if you have any questions, I would love to start doing questions on the show. If you have any questions, I believe it's down in my description. sportstalkpatriots at gmail.com. So anyways, shoot me an email. We'll talk later. Hit the subscribe button. Peace.